Welcome everyone to Running Your Business in the Cloud, presented by Morris Tabush. Morris is the founder and president of Tabush Group, a leading provider of virtual workspace, private cloud, and managed IT services based in New York City that specializes in delivering technology solutions for small to mid-sized businesses. Morris grew up passionate about technology and helping others. In 2000, he founded Tabush Group and has since grown it into a successful information technology company. Over the years, he's been responsible for building and overhauling hundreds of corporate networks and led the design and implementation of an award-winning private cloud infrastructure. As president, Morris oversees all aspects of the firm's business and clients, ensuring the Tabush team focuses on delivering outstanding service to our clients, allowing companies to focus on their growing businesses, not on their IT. As a life learner and avid student of business and information technology, Morris focuses on research and development, constant improvement, and client relations. In 2015, he led his team in developing a new all-in-one cloud IT service called BoxTop, designed specifically to meet the ongoing security needs of small to mid-sized professional service firms. Morris earned his Bachelor of Science in Information Systems from Yeshiva University. He has extensive experience presenting to groups nationwide on topics that include IT management, security, and cloud for non-tech savvy audiences. And he's been quoted in the media on both IT and business topics many times in the past few years. And here's Morris.
Okay, thank you, Sarah, very much for the really nice intro. So welcome everybody today. A little bit more background about myself. I grew up as one of those techie kids, for those of you who remember that, and since I was about 6 years old, I've been obsessed with technology. Everything from audio, video, to photography, and of course, computers and networks. Just a few months ago, I was at a vintage technology auction and actually bought the exact computer that I grew up on, which is an Apple IIc. I think it was invented in, or it was sold in around 1985. I bought one of those at the auction. At 15 years old, I was the kid riding my bike around town, helping people set up their first computer with AOL and a dial-up modem back in the early 1990s, for those of you who remember those days. Well, fast forward a couple of years, and for the last 18 or so years, I've been fortunate to be able to build and help support the IT infrastructures for a few hundred small businesses. I'm fortunate that I get to work with technology and help people at the same time, which are two things that I truly love doing, and as a bonus, I even get paid to do it. Now, as much as I am a techie, though, please don't be intimidated. The webinar today is actually designed for a non-tech savvy audience. If there's any point in time that is something you're not sure about, you don't understand, or I'm getting a little too technical, please pop your questions or comments into the chat box and Sarah will relay those over to me. Okay, so let's go over the goals for the webinar today. So today you're going to learn how properly utilizing the cloud can help your business maximize productivity, minimize downtime, and at the end of the day, focus on growth, which is what we all want to do. The way we're going to do this is by covering the following topics: IT challenges facing small to medium businesses, how these businesses can benefit from the latest cloud technologies, and some of the pros and cons of these cloud options. And at the very end, we'll do some case studies of real-life companies who've made the move to the cloud and how it's affected them. Now, before we move to the IT challenges facing small businesses, I want to get some feedback from all of you on what you feel the biggest challenges are, so I can make sure to address those. Sarah, I think you have the poll on your screen. If you can take over and throw that up for a minute.
Okay, everyone, you see a poll on your screen. What are the biggest IT challenges your firm faces? Feel free to provide multiple answers, and we'll give everyone on the call a few seconds to answer. Okay, we'll give everyone a few more seconds. Okay, we closed the poll, and I'm going to share the results now. So Morris, if you want to review the results, here they are.
Let's see. I actually am probably the only one on this call who does not see them. So give me a
Okay,
second
so I'll
here.
read them off. So we have
Okay.
67% of you actually said backups is your big challenge. Service and support at 50%. Secure remote access at 33%. Downtime at 17%.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you so much for sharing them, Sarah, and thank you everybody for your feedback. Is my screen showing again?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. So, challenges facing small to medium businesses. Okay, and just to be clear with everybody, when we say small to medium, I'm typically talking in the under 150 people. Some people feel like small is 5. We feel like small to medium, the range that we've been playing in for the last 18 or so years and we got to know really, really well, is that under 150, sometimes even a little larger than that size business. So as a business manager, you rely heavily on your IT. You also face some challenges that are unique to your business. But before we get into those challenges, let's ask ourselves for a minute, what exactly is IT? Is it the computer screen that you're looking at right now? The applications open in the background? Is it a server or two sitting in a closet in the back of your office? Is it the person you call when things don't work? So IT is actually the entire stack of technology, products, processes, and services used to facilitate business process and communications. It's everything from the software applications you use and the data you create, the computers and servers they run on, the network that connects them to each other and then to the internet, the protocols and technologies used to secure and back up your information and make it accessible from places other than your desk, and the people who support it when it doesn't work. In fact, in the last few years, your phones, both your cell phone and your desk phone, have also become part of the IT stack as they've become more functional and integrated with the systems. So why do we need IT? Very simply, to make a business more efficient. Businesses, large or small, have a ton of processes, a ton of things they're doing, and a lot of information required to help those processes. On the professional side, there's customer information, projects, inventory, sales reports, schedules, deadlines, document preparation, research, communication, data storage retrieval, trust and escrow accounts if you're an attorney, all sorts of things. On the business side, regardless of what industry you're in, there's your accounting and financial data, HR, benefits, payroll, office admin and management, vendors, systems, payables, receivables, expenses, billing. All of these things require IT, and there's a lot that we can facilitate and make more efficient with IT. Now take a minute and think about your individual business. What are some of the biggest challenges? Forgetting technology, the biggest processes, the most important parts of the business, and how heavily do those rely, or should they rely, on IT? Now with all these opportunities, what's important is to weigh those opportunities against the costs. And by costs, I don't mean the price that you'll pay to purchase a product or service, the sticker price or whatever it lists for on the website. I mean the cost of time to evaluate and decide on what the right product is for you. The amount of effort you need to train your staff, to manage it, to implement it, to support it. What are the outages that cost you? What are the risks involved? These are the true costs of any product or service that you implement in your business, not what you pay the day you sign the contract. In fact, what you pay the day you sign is probably the smallest of the costs. Now these costs are also challenges, so let's get right into that. What are some of the IT challenges facing companies like yours? And as a lot of you said, backups, service support, remote access, downtime, these are all big ones. So the first one we have in our slides is that everything IT is critical. Back in 2000, when we were first starting out, one of the questions we'd ask new clients is, what are the critical applications in your firm? Back then, there was typically one or two. Today, everything is critical. As IT has gotten faster, more accessible, more functional, we're using it for much more. We're storing much more data, much more processes in our information world or in our technology world. And IT has become more and more mission critical. Everything on it is critical. There's rarely anything that we have on our computers for the business that's not important. These days, we have really, really fast computers, really fast fiber optic and cable internet connections, and that's great, except that it also means that problems such as viruses, malware, ransomware can also spread really, really fast. And at this point, in just about every business, IT is so important that when the IT system goes down, whether it's because of a crash, an outage, a hardware failure, a virus, or just a system malfunction, when IT goes down, the business grinds to a halt. Another challenge is, okay, I'm going to go off topic a little bit. It's not limiting distractions. It's more about being objective when choosing an IT solution. Now, let's assume you're looking for a new accounting software. You go online, you Google a few choices. Everybody has a gorgeous website. Everything that you're shown is the perfect fit. I'm sure you've heard these sales pitches before. Our product was built for exactly your type of business. It'll solve all of your problems. We'll save you money. It's built for exactly what you need. Well, we all know that that's not always true, but sometimes we let our emotions get the best of us. We let the salespeople do their jobs, and we don't realize that the product isn't the right fit until months later when we've bought it, implemented it, trained on it, moved our data, and it's a little too late. Another challenge is managing multiple vendors and systems. Now, it's inevitable that your company will have a handful of vendors or partners for their technology needs. Maybe you've got one company for your network and IT support, another for your application software, another for your phones, your copiers, document management, your internet provider. Finger pointing when there's a problem is bound to happen. Sometimes you'll find there is an all-in-one provider, but they can also turn out to be like a three-headed monster. Now, the cost of downtime and the importance of service. This is a huge one. Some businesses may be able to function a little bit without their IT for a while, but some can't. When you and your team can't work because the system is down, whether it's because of a crash, a power loss, an internet outage, or any other reason, how much does that cost you if it's an hour, if it's a day, if it's a week? The service that you receive and the relationship that you have with your vendor is critical. Think about it. What factors can cause downtime or data loss? How much money do you stand to lose in one of those events? Now, downtime can be attributed to a natural disaster. Earlier this year, we had the flooding in Louisiana. We had forest fires just recently, snowstorms in Boston last year, which effectively crippled the city for a few days. Back in 2012 here in the Northeast, we had Hurricane Sandy, large-scale power outages. I can go on. And unfortunately, I'm sure in the next 6 to 12 months, there'll be some more large events just like those. And then there are the more routine things that happen all the time and don't make the news, like your internet being down, a server crash, a virus or malware, malicious intent, or even the dreaded blue screen of death. Now, I'm sure we've all unfortunately seen this a few times, and this is never a good thing. Talk about downtime. This, at best, just ruined the next hour or so for you, and at worst, it could be a few days while your PC is rebuilt or replaced, individual programs are reinstalled, and your data is slowly restored. Another challenge these days is securing sensitive information. Like I mentioned earlier, we all have these really fast computers and they're all connected to the internet 24/7, 365, which is great. But the fact that we have these machines that are all connected and we're storing such sensitive data on them makes them a huge target for hackers and other people who want to do bad things, we'll call them. Businesses today have super sensitive data on their computers. You may have HR information such as social security numbers and bank account information for your employees for their direct deposits, client credit cards. Depending on the business you're in, you may have other sensitive data for your customers or clients. Like it or not, every small business today is a target. Things like spear phishing and social engineering are on the rise. Now, this is an example of a spear phishing attempt on one of our clients, which happens to be an accounting firm. It happened about a year ago, and the good thing is they caught this one. The minute this email came in, the client called us. It looks pretty legitimate. It's going from Ben to somebody named George. Now, Ben and George happen to be partners at an accounting firm. The only thing that threw George off was that Ben never goes by Benedict. He goes by Ben. George was smart enough to pick up the phone, call Ben, and say, hey, Ben, did you just send me this email? Ben said no. We did a little bit of digging, found out how they spoofed it, and they stopped it. The problem is most people aren't as smart as George. A few weeks before this, one of our clients didn't catch a spoof that happened to them and accidentally wired $175,000 to the wrong account. A few weeks later, it almost happened again to a different company we work with. They actually went back and forth for about 15 minutes over emails until the CFO finally got up, walked into the CEO's office, and realized how they'd tricked him. And the trick was not a hack. None of these 3 examples that I provided were actual hacks. They're merely social engineering. These people get data from public industry lists, such as those for lawyers and accountants, scraping a company's team website, or even looking at their LinkedIn data to find out who's new in the company. Now, endpoint security is another critical thing. Many of you may have heard of BYOD, which means bring your own device. Now that's important because when you have systems that are cloud-based and allow you to access them from any laptop, any smartphone, any iPad, it's great, it's very convenient. But everything syncing all over the place means your data is also all over the place, and it just takes one insecure device to fall into the wrong hands for a company's data to be exposed. Imagine an employee in your company has a phone that has no password, or their password on their phone is 1111. And your corporate email is synced to the phone. Imagine they have an ERP system or a customer list or an accounting system on their phone. Imagine you work from a public computer. You download a few files to that computer to work on them. You re-upload them, but you forget to delete them off the computer. Or maybe somebody before you was using that computer and put a keystroke logger on it. Again, remote accessibility or the ability to access your data from anywhere is great, but it brings inherent security risks. Now, when I speak about accessibility, I mean getting your data when and where you need it. Maybe, like I said, from your office, from another company, from home, from a mobile device, wherever. Security, on the other hand, says to make that data as secure as possible so only the right people get it. But accessibility wants to make it easy to get to. Having both security and accessibility is walking a tightrope. Make it too accessible, it's not secure. Make it too secure, and you yourself can't get into your own data. It's a big challenge. So let's turn the tide a little bit and go into how firms can benefit from some of the latest cloud technologies and hopefully solve some of these challenges. But before we get into cloud, let's just know where we're coming from here. Very quick history lesson. So we'll begin our journey back in 1990, yes, a whole 26 years ago, which is about when I was getting started with AOL and the dial-up modems. So this isn't when computers started to appear in offices. There were these big beige desktop computers that had a few programs on them. Usually they were purchased because you needed one specific program to run on that PC, maybe banking or payroll, but that was it. Around 1993, modems became popular. They were 2400, or if you had the money to spend it, a 9600 baud modem. Now, a 9600 baud modem, as a point of reference, if you have a 25 meg internet connection, which is about average for cable or fiber, 25 meg today, which is entry level, is 3,000 times faster than a 9600 baud modem was 26 years ago. It's 3,000 times. And of course, these modems got us online for a few minutes with dial-up to do things like banking and payroll. But that was it. The early 2000s was a tipping point. Yes, we had the dot-com crash in March of 2001. But as a result of that, we got always-on internet, first in the form of DSL lines. We got file and email servers, became more affordable so small businesses could afford to have their own shared file or their own email domain, and suddenly the entire company didn't have to share one AOL dial-up account. Shortly after that, the pace of innovation surged, and Moore's law of doubling every 18 months in computer speed and connection speed held true while prices plummeted. So in 2010, cloud services started to appear. But what is cloud? Well, the cloud means, excuse me, I fast-forwarded a little too quickly there. Cloud means that companies started taking products that you'd normally use locally, maybe a server or a desktop in your office. The software would come on a CD or a DVD, and instead giving you those same features and functionality as a service streamed from a remote data center, using these super fast, always-on internet connections that we now had. And this started a major transformation in IT and what it can be used for. Now, probably the best example I could think of a company transforming an industry with the cloud is Netflix. I'm sure you all remember Blockbuster stores. Back in 2003, Netflix arrived letting you browse and order DVDs by mail. So rather than go to the store to pick out what you wanted, you clicked, and a day or two later it was in your mailbox. But in 2009, Netflix streaming came out. And now, at the end of the day, it's still a movie on your TV, but how that movie gets to your TV has changed. Instead of being on a DVD that you would insert into a DVD player, that movie is coming over your internet connection through Wi-Fi to your smart TV. The interesting thing is that Netflix is digital video, but it couldn't have existed back then. Even though digital video came out in 1998 with the DVDs, Netflix couldn't happen back then because we didn't have fast internet connections at our home. We didn't have Wi-Fi. We didn't have tablets. We didn't have smart TVs. It wasn't until we had all these enablers that Netflix can take this digital video stream and send it to us over the internet instead of mailing the DVDs in those red envelopes. Now, while Netflix is great, and I am a subscriber myself, it doesn't really impact most businesses unless you're in the video rental industry, which I'm guessing none of us are today. So let's talk about some cloud options that are more practical to our businesses. Before we talk about the specific options that may be a little more practical than Netflix, I just want to get an understanding if anybody is using any of these cloud options already. So Sarah, if you can just get the next poll going.
So I've thrown up the poll, everybody. Are you using any of these cloud options? Indicate all that are relevant. We'll give you everyone a few seconds to reply.
Sarah, just a reminder, when we're done with the poll, I can't see the poll from my end, so let me know what the results look like.
Definitely. Okay, we'll give everyone a few more seconds here, about 15 seconds. Okay, I'm going to close the poll now and share the results. So it looks like about 2/3 of you guys said email, file sharing, and remote access are ones that you're using, and then about 1/3 said also practice management software and phone systems.
Okay.
So now the screen is back to you.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's talk about the pros and cons of some of these cloud options that are out there. We'll start off with one of the most popular ones, which is email. Now, email, whether it comes in the form of Google Apps, Office 365, or dozens of hosted Exchange providers that are out there, is the most popular thing to put in the cloud. Email almost always makes sense for a company to go to the cloud. It's one of the first things that was developed for the cloud. It works beautifully. The price is right. The real decision for a company to make is if they want to go on a Google Apps or a Microsoft Exchange platform. Office 365 is a version of Exchange. If the company is very, very Outlook-centric, as many businesses are, Office or Exchange is the way to go. If the company is not, a lot of the younger startups are very into everything being web-based. Google Apps is also a great option. The next one is file sharing. Now, there's a whole bunch of people in this space. 3 of the popular ones, Dropbox, Box, Citrix ShareFile. Another one I'll mention is Ignite. Again, really great products. They let you no longer worry about having a file server, maintaining that server, backing up that server, because they do everything in the cloud. As well, they let you share things out of the office and even with people that are not part of your organization. On the software side, you have things like QuickBooks Online, FreshBooks, and Peachtree. So those are, some of the more traditional apps, which were QuickBooks and Peachtree, have transitioned into QuickBooks Online and FreshBooks, completely web-based accounting packages. There's a few others out there as well. And you've got products like Salesforce, which is the clear leader in CRM, and they've actually expanded to do a lot more than that now, displacing people like Goldmine and PeopleSoft. I believe PeopleSoft was acquired by Siebel, and Siebel was then acquired by Oracle, if memory serves. But they've done a complete disruption in moving software off of your typical CDs and floppies and into the cloud. On the voice side, and I think a 1/3 or so of you mentioned that you're using voice systems in the cloud, the old way of having a Nortel or a Toshiba or an Avaya phone system in your office has given way to cloud-hosted options. Typically, you'll have something like a Polycom or a Cisco phone on your desk, and instead of that phone being tied into a switch in the back of your office with then some phone lines coming in from Verizon or AT&T, you've got something like an 8x8, and again, there's dozens of other providers out there where the phone on your desk goes through your internet connection just like your computers, works in the cloud. Again, tons of features, more than any small business can get with their own phone system. Redundancy, reliability, and the ability to work from anywhere are some of the great things about a cloud phone system. On the remote access side, it used to be all about doing a VPN connection using dial-up, maybe something like a Citrix or a terminal server. That's given way to systems like LogMeIn and GoToMyPC. If you need occasional access to your desktop computer when you're not at the desk, these are great and really inexpensive ways to get to your computer. Okay, the last one I want to speak about, I'm going to speak a little longer because it's a new service, is desktop as a service. So desktop as a service, it came about around 2012, but has gotten tremendously better in the last 2 years. Unlike something like Dropbox, which puts your files in the cloud, or Office 365, which puts your email in the cloud, desktop as a service actually takes your entire desktop, that black thing sitting on your desk or under your desk, and it takes the entire computer, all the applications on it, and moves that to the cloud. And then you just log in from any screen, and your entire workspace, all the programs, icons, settings, documents, etc., appear in front of you. It's very much like Netflix, except for computers. Now, unlike using LogMeIn or GoToMyPC, which means you're connecting from somewhere through the cloud back to your office, with something like desktop as a service, you're connecting from somewhere straight into the cloud. And when it's done right, desktop as a service is as fast or even faster than a regular PC. One example of this is our product called BoxTop, which we launched about 1.5 years ago. Okay, now with all of these great things in the cloud, there are always some challenges to keep in mind. The first challenge is functionality of the service. Whatever you're looking at, whether it be software, email, phone system, desktop as a service, remote access, backups, don't be fooled by a fancy interface or some gee whiz features or a cute video on the website. Look at how mature or deep this system is. How long has it been around? How much experience does the company have in that industry? And don't look at that they have software developers who've been developing software for 30 years. Look at how long they've been in that particular business for. How responsive is it if it's very heavy data entry? For example, many accounting systems are all about data entry all day long. And if you have to wait 2 or 3 seconds when it switches between screens, that could add up pretty quickly. Another thing to keep in mind with cloud systems are what types of integrations do they offer? How customizable are they? Are you forced into upgrades when the provider comes out with a new version? And what if you don't like that upgrade? What if you want to stay on the old version? Also, ownership of data. What happens is with all of these cloud systems, you no longer own it, you're renting it. So rather than being a landlord and being able to do whatever you want, you become a tenant, and you may be somewhat limited. For example, some companies we work with prefer to stay on older versions of certain software packages because those work for them. They don't want to always upgrade, but when you're in the cloud, sometimes you have no choice. Another thing to keep in mind is the simplicity. Many of these cloud systems are touted to be super easy, get set up in minutes. Well, the easier they are to set up, or the easier they appear to be, the more cautious I'd be, especially as your business grows. Mature systems that are built for businesses are never as easy as pie to set up. They take a bit of investing, they take training, they take customization, but if they're done properly, they'll pay for themselves many times over. Next is the stability of these products, and more importantly of the companies. Some of these seemingly great cloud products come from startups who are funded by venture capital, which I like to equate to borrowed time. For anybody who follows startups, the unicorn fad is dead, and when these companies, and if these companies run out of money and their business plans don't go as promised, they may go into maintenance mode. They may feel it a bit, or you'll feel it a bit if they go into maintenance mode. Of course, we spoke about service and support. That was something that a lot of you said was very important. Many cloud providers are focused on growth, plain and simple. Some of them are startups, others are multi-billion-dollar conglomerates. But you may be a small fish in their big ocean. And when it comes time for support, when you have a problem or you can't work, will they really care enough to give you the service and response time that you need? Finally, security and privacy. How secure is this data when you put it in the cloud? How often is it backed up? And can you access those backups? Are they compliant with any security standards that your business may have to follow, such as PCI, HIPAA, SSAE 16, or NIST? And what's their privacy policy for disclosing data to others? Will they notify you? Will they give you a chance to oppose that? Which of these standards apply to your business? Remember, your data is extremely valuable to hackers. Now, I have a few examples that I usually like to speak about at this time, but in the interest of time and I want to have room for Q&A, I'm going to hold off on those examples for now. We can always get back to them later. Just one thing I want to mention is regarding security. I want to clear up a big misconception. Because the cloud is out there and not on a server that you can see in your office or in a closet, some people naturally assume it's less secure. That's false. Most cloud services are more stable and more secure than anything you can do yourself. It's kind of like putting your valuables in a safe deposit box in the bank versus keeping them in a locked drawer in your basement. Or flying on a commercial airline versus driving your own car. You know, when you're driving a car, you're at the driver's seat. When you're on a plane, you're a passenger. You have no control. But that plane is actually much safer than your own car. It may feel less safe, but it's safer. It's just going to take time until some people feel comfortable with the cloud. Last week, I was on a phone call with an executive at a pretty large and well-established real estate company, and he said he's always avoided cloud because he's worried that the cloud may break. Now, the reason he's worried is because he just doesn't understand what the cloud is. If he understood it, he'd know it's more stable and more secure than what he has in his office right now. So let's take a look for a minute at what the office of yesterday looks like. Take a look at your screen. Does this look familiar to you? Because it should. Most of the pieces of IT, the systems, the data, the guts, for lack of a better term, are owned and hosted by your company. They may be supported by an employee or an outside service provider, and maybe a few of those pieces have made it into the cloud, like email, but there's still a long way to go. Now you see the office of tomorrow, and this is where we see things going. In fact, a lot of companies have already gotten there. What you can call, go back up for a minute, complete IT in the cloud is taking desktop as a service to the next level. It's basically putting your desktop as well as a lot of the needs of your business in the cloud and delivering them all from a single source. More than the desktops, you've got your servers, your applications, your support, monitoring, help desk, and much more. In a model like this, everything critical is in the cloud, and the people who are responsible for supporting this are not bound by geographical, environmental, hardware, or other issues. Your office simply becomes one of the many locations that can access this cloud, as does just about anywhere else your employees need to work from. And wherever that may be, it never feels like you're working remotely, since the environment was designed to be delivered via the cloud. So we can go on and on about pros and cons, hypotheticals, details, etc., but I like to use some real-world examples. So some of these are businesses that you can hopefully relate to and actual experiences. The first one we're going to call Broadway Law, because they're a law firm and their address is on Broadway. So this company was a growing business. They had about 25 employees altogether. I don't know why we have 18 on there, but they were actually about 25. They had recently opened a West Coast office, and they were tech savvy enough to not be afraid of trying new things. They had a server in their New York office. Their email had already been moved to the cloud a long time ago. Their practice management was in the cloud, but they used QuickBooks for all their financials, which is a whole bunch of different entities that they needed to manage. And the partners in this law firm traveled a lot, especially now going back and forth between New York and Los Angeles. They had adopted Dropbox about a year ago for mobile access to their files because it was so easy, but they implemented it themselves. They were having issues such as security and compliance. As well, all their desktops were running out of storage space because Dropbox had to sync everything down to everybody's computer. They were still struggling with some in-house IT issues with their server, with desktop support, remote access, etc. And they moved to desktop as a service. And all of a sudden, everybody, no matter where they were on the same page. QuickBooks ran in the cloud for them, so there were no issues. Every application, in fact, whether it was a cloud app or a local app, including some specific ones that certain people used but others didn't, all ran through the cloud, and it felt exactly the same. They had no more worrying about anything on-premise, warranties, security, various systems, etc. Now, not on the slide, this past winter, a pipe burst in their office over a cold weekend. It flooded their network closet and a bunch of the private offices. It took about 2 weeks to repair everything, But the great thing is that when the partner walked in that morning and saw the burst pipe and 2 inches of water on the floor, he turned around, went home, emailed everybody else to work from home, and it was fine. The fact that their server room was flooded didn't really make a difference because there was nothing critical in there anymore. Another case study is a private aviation firm. This is a company that does air charter and flight training. They didn't even know about the desktop as a service concept. What they did is came up with a list of exactly what their IT challenges were and approached several companies with them, which included running 3 traditional non-cloud applications, 2 different databases, file sharing, and a very heavy use of Acrobat and Microsoft Office. Their frustrations included slow remote access, slow performance of all applications, and that their IT support was being done part-time by a family member who had a day job and didn't really want to do the IT work. And the proposals that they had already received to overhaul their entire network were out of budget. Also, a few months earlier, they'd had a server crash and lost a month's worth of QuickBooks data. They knew it was time to take the next step. Desktop as a service was the perfect solution for them because it literally checked off every single one of their needs and solved their frustrations. The family IT person who had been doing part-time work wanted the responsibility off his plate, and when he saw the offering, he was impressed by it. A year ago, they moved to a box-top platform, and after 3 weeks of planning and testing, 25 users in their firm were rolled out in 1 day. And not only did it work right away, but there was an immediate difference, an immediate improvement in the performance of all of their applications. Then, a few weeks later, they needed to share their data with some external users. Boom, done. Shortly after that, they hired an outside accounting firm to do their bookkeeping, set them up as additional users on the DAS platform, and the next day they could instantly access QuickBooks and share data with people that were back in the New York office. It's as if everybody was working together, because they were. Currently, this firm is actually working on expanding into Texas and Chicago. The last case study is a real estate management firm. Now, this is a business very unique that many of their people are out of the office because they're managing properties, commercial, retail, and residential. So they're all working from all over the place. This company approached us and specifically wanted everything out of the office. They didn't like whenever there was a problem in their office in New York, everybody who was not in the office also felt it. Also, their infrastructure, their servers, their desktops were all past their prime and needed to be replaced. By going to a desktop as a service platform, again, they achieved all of their needs. Everything stays in the cloud and it's never local. Users have super fast access to the same environment from wherever they are, and there's no headaches of VPNs or worry about data leakage or endpoint security. When one of this firm's clients had a breach, there was no risk for the person working on it because he was never on their network, even though he worked from their office. He was just basically using their internet connection. And what he did, and all work on a desktop as a service platform, is fully encrypted from end to end. And of course, that once in a while when the internet or the power goes down in their office, nobody's really affected except for the people who sit there, and they could walk around the corner to Starbucks and work from there. So, as we've discussed, companies exist to sell a product or service to their customers. Now, the better and more efficiently they can do that, the more a firm can grow and increase profits. The more IT that a company owns, and yes, by IT I mean servers, desktops, etc., the more they're responsible for, the more they get distracted, and the more of a risk they have if they're exposed to a problem. What we've seen since we started working in the cloud in 2006 is that as we moved more and more things to the cloud, those pieces in the cloud just ran beautifully. They didn't have problems. They were easy to support, easy to service, easy to maintain, and our clients loved them. So the challenge we gave ourselves when developing desktop as a service was, could we move the desktops? Because everything else runs amazing in the cloud. Learning how to properly utilize the cloud, finding the right providers who can deliver a more stable and reliable service than you can build on your own, will allow your business to focus on its customers, focus on its products, focus on its services. And these are the things that really matter to your bottom line. Information technology has and continues to change very rapidly. The way that you apply it to your firm may also change. 15 years ago, in 2001, nobody would consider hosting their data on the cloud. People liked looking at their servers and their equipment, knowing it was in their office, and for good reason. The technology didn't exist to put things in the cloud. Think back again to Netflix trying to do streaming video over a slow DSL line to the one desktop computer that each house had 15 years ago. It wouldn't work. It didn't make sense until the technology was there to support it. And today, the technology does exist to deliver the same or better experience through the cloud. And consumers and businesses, for the most part, have gotten comfortable with the concept of cloud because when it's done right, it's proven itself to be more reliable, more secure, and more stable than the in-house alternatives. If you're thinking that maybe this is worth looking into for your business, my recommendation is to pause, take a deep breath, sit down with a pad of paper and a pen, and yes, I'm an old-fashioned guy in that I love writing stuff down on paper, and list out a few reasons why you want to move to the cloud. Before considering any solutions or getting any proposals from any companies, list out the real needs, the real problems that should be solved in order of must-haves and then nice-to-haves. Then evaluate those options against the providers that are out there, or sorry, evaluate those needs against the options that are out there. Now, a lot of you mentioned earlier in the webinar, backups are a huge concern, and they should be. Your data is your company. I like to tell people if something crashes, you can buy new hardware, you can buy new software, you can't buy your data. There are many, many cloud options out there for backing up and securing your data at all price points, at all levels. Same thing with service and support. So much support these days and service is done remotely via the cloud, but it has to be done right. Some other strategies that we recommend are to be objective. Don't be sold by cool features, incentives, or videos. Those are distractions. Also, get to know the person you're going to be buying from, the provider. You're going to need to rely on them not only when things are great, but more so when things are not great. You want someone, in fact, you need someone who has your back no matter what. And when there's an issue, they're going to go above and beyond to solve it for you. Work, take your time, and most of all, trust your gut. Thank you, everybody, for your time and attention today. I'm going to turn it back over to Sarah for the Q&A.
Thank you, Morris. So as I mentioned at the beginning, if anyone has any questions that you haven't yet put into the question box in your control panel, feel free to right now. We do have a few questions that have come in. The first one, Morris, is what value would we gain from having our complete IT system in the cloud if we're already using a cloud software such as Office 365, Dropbox, those sorts of things?
Okay, so that's a very common question that we get. The biggest value, in my opinion, is, okay, Office 365 is a great platform for email and for some applications. Dropbox is really nice because it has some of your files on it. But you've still got a lot of things that don't exist in those two systems. You've probably got integrations, programs, databases, a ton of things that exist on a desktop computer sitting in your office, which is why, as nice as 365 and Dropbox may be, you use more than just that. So one of the values from from desktop as a service is that it takes your entire desktop, which is that amalgamation point where everything sits. It's your workspace, moves the entire workspace to the cloud. So it's not only your Office 365 and your Dropbox that go with that, it's everything. Another advantage is that you're taking not just the infrastructure, but the support and the people that support it and moving all of that to the cloud. So it's eliminating a lot of, if you want to call it, possible excuses for when things don't work. Oh, it's this person, it's that person, it's something else. You're moving everything to the cloud.
Okay, so the next question is, what if I have data on a USB card that I need to upload to my desktop?
Okay, so this varies by provider. So I can speak for BoxTop because it's our product. We do allow USB drives to access BoxTop. You just plug them into whatever device you're using, unless a client requests not to. Some companies have actually asked us to disable that feature, which we have done a few times for security reasons. But our system allows access. Most systems I've seen in the desktop as a service world do have that feature also. again, it works for us and it works for many, but not for all. So if that's something important, I know a lot of law firms still rely on USB drives and CD-ROMs, believe it or not, make sure with whatever provider you're looking at that you have that functionality.
Okay, and the next question, very similar. What if I have a piece of software on a DVD that needs to be installed? Can I install that on my desktop?
Right. So again, very similar answer. Most or some platforms allow you to access DVD drives and USB drives. Ours does allow that, and it can be installed no problem. Some environments don't allow. Oops, sorry. Looks like our building is doing a testing of the fire alarm right now, so I hope that's not coming through on the microphone. As I was saying, some environments like ours allow for any Windows application to be installed. So if it runs on your computer, it runs in our cloud. Some of them are a little bit more restrictive to what you can run. So if you're the kind of business that has some non-standard apps that you rely on, double check that with your provider well before you look at anything else.
Okay, and we have another wonderful question. Basically, it is, what about Macs when you're using all of these cloud desktops?
Okay, so there's two answers here. The first answer is that, yes, anything, any computer or any screen that's connected to the internet can access a virtual desktop or a desktop as a service. So I actually log into my own desktop from my MacBook at home about once or twice a week. And it works just like a regular, once I'm logged in, it feels like I'm at my desk, even though I'm actually on a MacBook. However, the other answer to this question is the virtual desktop that you run will always be Windows-based. So once you log in, you see a Windows screen, Windows applications. And the reason for that is that Apple does not allow their system to be virtualized and run in the cloud.
Okay, great. So another question, and then if anyone has any more questions, please take the time to put them in now so we can wrap up and everyone can get back to their day soon. Next question is, you said something about you could also have issues remote accessing your office information through the cloud. So what if you don't always have good internet? How can our office access everything if we move everything to the cloud?
Okay, so if a company is going to move to the cloud, they need to have good internet. Now today, we're almost in 2017, but we're still in 2016 for the next 15 or 16 days or 17 days. I would challenge anybody who says they don't have a reliable internet connection. In this day and age, internet, solid, fast, and reliable internet is pretty much ubiquitous. There are so many options out there, from fiber to cable to copper to fixed wireless, that most businesses today should be able to get at least 2, if not more, internet connections. And what we've seen with providers is that these days, more often than not, the reason somebody has no internet is because they also have no power. But internet connections these days are just getting faster, more reliable, there's more options, and they're even getting less expensive. So that should not be an issue for any company. For end users, we've developed a few ways that end users can work if they have no internet, where they can sync up with the cloud. But again, that's a more specific option that I'll discuss on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, and we're just going to take 2 more quick questions here. One of them is, what about accessing local resources in your office, like printers, local servers? Is this all done via port forwarding?
So, no, it's not. Okay, it's doable. It's typically not done via port forwarding. We like to avoid that because port forwarding is always very complex and sometimes buggy and can present some security issues. So again, I can speak for our solution. We have some proprietary technologies we built to allow local access to printers, scanners, and any other on-premise resources. Every provider, or hopefully every provider, has their own approach to that, but it's never been a challenge that we've not been able to solve pretty quickly.
Great, and our final question we're going to have time to get to today is, as a company yourself, what are you using in the way of cloud options?
Okay, so I'm going to just give one more answer to the last question and then discuss what we use ourselves. When it's done right, a desktop as a service platform should look, feel, and work exactly like a desktop. Our goal when we were designing boxes about 2.5 years to develop was that when a person is using it, they don't know they're on the cloud. Everything from opening files to installing programs to printing to scanning should, and we're proud to say does, work exactly as if you had a PC. Now, to go back to the current question, what do we use? So I'm proud to say that we eat our own dog food, or as I tell some people who meet me, I'm not just the president of the Hair Club for Men, I'm also a client. I use BoxTop. I'm using BoxTop now. I've been actually using BoxTop for about 2.5 years since it was in beta. I have not had a desktop computer on my desk for over 2.5 years now. So we proudly use BoxTop for our own people and operations, which is great because many of us work from home often. We also use a hosted voice over IP system that we get from another company, which works beautifully. What else do we use? We used to use some cloud file sharing before the days of BoxTop. We don't need to rely on cloud file sharing or remote access solutions or backups anymore because that's all part of the solution. But our desktops and our phone systems do live in the cloud, and they have for quite a while now.
Great. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for attending the webinar today. You'll see on the screen Morris's contact information. He's very accessible, so if you ever want to shoot him an email, give him a call, connect with him on LinkedIn, as well as if you haven't yet, take a chance to go around our website at tabush.com and stay tuned as we will continue to have another webinar series in the new year. Take care and have a wonderful rest of your day.